Welcome back to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast. To jump right into our next segment on hand, more OTA storylines, this time more focusing in on a new head coach down there in Atlanta, Georgia, Raheem Morris, in his first season as the head coach of the Falcons this season. And it's odd talking about Raheem Morris just because usually in OTAs you hear the classic stories of coaches and other veteran players talking about some other player that impressed them, someone that's doing their homework, someone that's working extra hard. It's usually somebody raving about the players, but in this instance, it's sort of flipped, and all the players are raving about Raheem Morris and what he's really doing very well early on to start the OTAs process, and what really is making everybody fall more in love with Raheem Morris, really, to start this new era in the Atlanta Falcons. Era with this new young core that they have and new head coach. He's doing all the right things, it seems, according to some of the players. As an example of sort of the picture that you can get with Raheem Morris and what he's bringing to the table, veteran safety Jesse Bates mentioned it a few days ago at a media availability at OTAs. He said, coaches sometimes try to go pick on somebody and they're like, sorry, I'm not picking on you. Raw's like, I'm picking on you. I want you to be better. I expect more out of you. All has to do with changing the culture and changing this idea of, accountability. I think is the biggest thing I think of when I analyze this story. Raheem Morris going out there and saying, yeah, I'm trying to pick on you. I expect more out of you. I want to see the best out of you, is essentially what he's saying there, according to Jesse Bates. And I like that to start off right away because you instantly send the message to everybody that this is the standard with the Atlanta Falcons. That's the sort of standard he's trying to set. So already he gets an A plus grade for me. I really like that about Raheem Morris. He seems very much engaged in everything that he does, really focusing in on the little things as well, it seems, with him as a coach. And also, linebacker Caden Ellis also mentioned it in his statement as well to the media. I'm so excited to work with these guys. They're not just amazing football coaches, they're amazing men. The energy they bring is awesome and it hasn't dropped off yet. That's another thing Raheem Morris really wanted to emphasize as he came in here through his first OTAs, that he really wants to change the vibe around not just the team, but around really the entire organization and any room that he walks into. And it makes sense because if you look at the Atlanta Falcons recently, they're coming off of three straight 7-10 seasons and a playoff drought that extends really longer than anybody except the New York Jets and the Denver Broncos. Not the sort of company you brag about that you're in with the Atlanta Falcons and the Broncos and the Jets. So they clearly want to change that. They are slowly building this young, exciting team that now they have Drake London in there, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, all hits that they hit on in the NFL draft. And now sort of piecing it all together. It didn't really work out last year with Arthur Smith and that system that he ran. It really just comes down to the quarterback that they have in hand. They seem to be overly stocked up at that position now with Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix. So you don't really have to worry about that, which was ultimately the main goal for Raheem Morris and the Falcons organization into drafting Michael Penix as high as they did. They don't want to worry about that position. They know how hard it is to get a guy in there and find the guy for the organization. They believe they have not just one guy, but two of them that are capable of being starting quarterbacks and getting them to where they want to be. So now it just comes down to the things you don't always see at OTAs. How Raheem Morris is approaching this each and every day, I think, is a very good sign. And also, Jesse Bates just wrapped it all up in another statement he made on it, in saying, the thing with Raw that makes him so unique is that Raw is hands-on with the offense, hands-on with the defense. When we have our team meetings, that's some of the best team meetings I've ever been around. That all just encompasses really what I had in my mind what Raheem Morris is as a coach, and it is all great right now. It's all sunshine and roses, and it all seems still to be in the honeymoon phase with Raheem Morris. So I ask myself now the question of, looking past this season, looking towards the potential struggles, the transitional period you get with so many new players trying to learn a new system, a new quarterback as well coming in, a rookie and a guy that's never been there before. With all these good feelings already, will Raheem Morris sort of get a fair evaluation as a head coach after the 2024 season? You usually, when these situations happen, a new head coach comes in and trying to deal with a whole new young team. A lot of the times, because you have a Bijan who everybody could agree on is great, you have a good young promising talent in Drake London. Kyle Pitts, again, another player few people would say isn't a good player. A lot of people know that these guys are great, and sort of the way that this goes, if the Falcons have another, say, 7-10 season, 8-11 season, something like that, or I should say 6-11 season. If they have another season like that, will Raheem Morris get a fair evaluation then to see how much he's put into this job and how much he's already seems so engaged in it? Will he get a fair evaluation and the trust, essentially, is what I'm trying to get at from the organization that, all right, he sort of built a foundation here at OTAs. Everybody seems to love it. All the players seem to have gone behind it. At this point, that could change or that could enhance itself as it goes further and further into the summer, into August, and then the regular season. That's something to watch out for as well. And it is worth noting and just keeping an eye on if this trust between the organization and Raheem Morris sort of plays out into a fair evaluation later on, because new head coaches a lot of the time get to be scapegoated with some of these young teams that just clearly are lacking in some areas, but the head coach, is the one who takes up the brunt of the responsibility. And I feel like sometimes coaches are let go of when they really weren't the problem, and I am hoping that that's not the case with Raheem Morris. That's the question that I am thinking of right now. It seems like all these players are really embracing his mentality and what he's trying to bring to Atlanta, and I think it's the way of going about it if you're Raheem Morris, bringing that extra energy around a team that for the longest time or for recently have been stuck in this middle gray area around 500, 7 and 10, maybe one game above 500, not being good enough to make the playoffs. Raheem Morris seems to just trying to exclude all that noise and just focusing in on each and every day, which is great. And it comes down, again, if you look at Raheem Morris on who he is as a coach, where he comes from in his history, he comes from Super Bowl winning staffs with the Los Angeles Rams. So that should also point to the organization, not that he has been influenced by other great coaches, but also that he has learned from these great coaches, these great other organizations like the Rams in recent history, to suggest that he knows what he's talking about, to trust him even more in what he's doing. This is just very much the baseline foundational work of what he's trying to build eventually, as I would assume, when he gets more help on the defensive side of the ball, you get more experience, more chemistry on the offensive side as well. Results are obviously what matters. It is what everybody judges it off on, just right in general. If you look at the team, you look at the record, oh, they must be awful if they're 7-10, 6-11 or something like that. Or if they're just 500, they're just all right. They could get better. Without really looking at what Raheem Morris is trying to do, I think that's a very skewed way of going about it. So the results are what matter, but the approach that Raheem Morris is trying to bring and trying to change the culture a little bit is what I think matters most, especially with a young team like I mentioned, trying not only to set an identity for the whole organization, but something that the players can be on board with. And it seems, according to Jesse Bates, Caden Ellis, and all other players, I'm sure, that they are now starting to buy more and more what Raheem Morris is doing. There were some question marks thrown early at him because of the Michael Penix pick. Some of that inexperience as a head coach, some people might point to as the reason as to why they made that selection, but it looks like he's just walking right over that, not paying any attention to it, and really believes that he has a good team to make some noise in the NFC. I think they have the offense to do it. They have a lot of great players. I'm still weary on the idea of how this defense is going to look. He is a defensive minded coach, so maybe that helps out a little bit more on that side. Maybe he has seen something in these players that not everybody, including myself, evaluates them as, but that is still in question for me. On the offensive side of the ball, I think they're good. Whether or not Kirk Cousins is the guy to do it, you have Michael Penix now in there as well. Everybody else I'm all right with. Just piecing it all together and fixing that defense, I think, gives them a good shot this year. Certainly think they're going to be better than 7-10. I think they will break that streak, but what is deemed as a good season will sort of develop as the year goes on. But anyway, that's all on that story. We're going to move on with a couple more stories on today's show. I mentioned some early takeaways from the Jets starting their OTAs, as well as on Tuesday what's being said about Aaron Rodgers, their offense, and some players that are standing out. That is coming up in just a few seconds. Also, the NFL testing out this new optical tracking system to determine the yard to gain situations in football. How they're going to do it, they're going to test it out in the preseason. I'll give you guys more details on that story in just a few seconds, so don't go anywhere.